Welcome inflatable powerboating fans to the Red Square Inflatable Powerboat Championships for 2010. We're round number 2 and back at Gariep for another flat water national. The leaders in all three classes wanting to extend their lead they've built up in the national championships so far. Setup of the boat so important, as is the pressure that you pump these inflatable powerboats to. We spoke to Rocker Erasmus from Stainless Tech as he explains the importance.
Pumping the boat to a pressure, we normally pump at 0.4 on the pontoons and 1 bar at the hijackers. And we check it with a gauge, so every pontoon will be the same pressure. It makes a difference if you pump it, let's say the right spec pressure, whatever.
At this level of competition, every little bit of advantage you can gain over your competition helps as the drivers look for that added little help from technology. A quick driver's briefing as far as the day's proceedings were concerned. 2 days racing action. The first day would be circuit racing over a very, very tight circuit, and all the national pilots would compete for maximum points. It would then move to a long haul situation, racing over the distance of the Gariep Dam. First class to get going would be the Century Electrical Standard Class. 9 boats heading off the line in the first heat of the Standard Class. All the big names to the front: Gordon Butler, Eugene Foster. Also, watch out for Kyle Colby there. On the right-hand side for Carney Petroleum, that's Simon Voort doing pretty well. He's holding off the Alcazar boat of Gordon Butler as they move into the first lap. On board we go now with PH Blantyre, Jacques Mathieu and Carlo Watkins. One more boy to go. Then it's into the main straight, and you can see the amount of water being sprayed up there. You can't see where you're going. Oh, he drifts wide. It looks like there's a boat on the outside. It could be one after a cream. He goes over. That's going to cost Jacques Mathieu dearly. His father, Vessel Mathieu, does all of the technical work on that boat. He's a very skilled man as far as inflatable powerboat racing is concerned, but it's going to take him at least a lap to sort it out. So Jacques Mathieu out of heat number 1. He's losing points here on the restart. Vucani Petroleum showing they've got the speed to match the king of flatwater, Gordon Butler. So Simon Voort has got the inside line as they head out towards that bottom buoy. It's Alcazar on the outside. It's going to be a titanic battle for the lead. Gordon Butler knows the flat water though, and he knows there are still some equalizer laps to come. Keep in mind they race 9 laps on the flat water. 2 of those have got to be equalizers where they take a longer route around the course. It kind of balances out the field, and it's crucial that you take that equalizer lap in clean water. It just gives the prop a little bit more thrust, a little bit more power. So that's S1 Wild Africa Cream. Eugene Foster, he's the current SA champion. S1 on the boat indicates that to us. This time round he's riding with a new co-driver. It's Odette Matham. Of course, he tells out his usual co-driver not being able to come down to this national due to some personal commitments, but Vucani Petroleum still at the front. Simon Voort pulling away and managing to keep the Alcazar boat at bay. This is Kyle Colby and Ross Templeman. Conti Creek, they hail from Port Elizabeth, where they do a lot of racing on the North End Lakes. It's about the only time they get to head out to the flat water. Flat water, not Colby's favorite pastime. Jaco Klooster, Zeal and Wilhelm Stein in the Aquarius inflatable racing boat coming through. They did so well last time they raced here. They won the long haul and came into the top 4 as far as the circuit race was concerned. This time they want to improve on that position by trying to get into the top 3. So as we move now into the last lap, as the boats come around for that final lap, some disappointment at the front of the pack for Vucani Petroleum and Simon Voort. He led all the way, managed to fend off for charging Gordon Butler, but both Voort and Butler would be disqualified due to a technical infringement out on the course, and that would leave the win in heat number 1 would go to Jaco Klooster, Zeal and Wilhelm Stein. So Aquarius Inflatables getting that win ahead of Butler and Voort, and a big disappointment for those two. As we head off to heat number 2, it's Kulani Transport getting off to a great start, managing to hold their position in the midfield. As Kyle Colby comes through on the inside line, they're outrunning Jaco Klooster, Zeal for that first turn, boy. So it looks like Kyle Colby's got the lead. Yes, he has. Second place, it's the Wild Africa Cream. Eugene Foster with Kulani Transport's Tertius Botma and Monica Fouchier in third place at the moment. So it's Conti Creed, Wild Africa Cream, Kulani Transport as the boats head around to complete the first lap. Inflatable powerboat racing, especially on the circuit, it's all about consistency. You've got to be consistent. Your boat setup has got to be right, and only then do you stand a chance to dominate the front. As Kyle Colby comes through, then it's Wild Africa Cream, Foster and Talia, then it's Tertius Botma coming through, Kulani Transport, and then it looks like Jaco Klooster, Zeal in 4th place at the moment. And for the rest of the field, it's a scrap to try and pick up the positions. The man that got DQ'd in heat number 1, Simon Voort, now running way back in 6th position, just behind PH Blantyre's Jacques Mathieu and Carlo Watkins. In third place, though, it's Kulani Transport, Tertius Botma, and Monica Porsche. And this is a duo that's improved so much since we saw them racing the very first time out in Clarksdorp this year. They entered the national championships as rookies, but already they are showing that they know how to handle a boat. I think Botma really will have a lot to prove as he moves into the later rounds of this championship. Last time we raced at Gariep, Gordon Butler dominated with his brother Donovan as a co-driver, but this time round it's Conticrete's Carl Colby showing what he's made of at the front of the pack. It's Foster in second place, Wild African Cream, and then these guys, Kulani Transport, Tertius Botma, third place, and hanging on to that third place position. He knows he's just got to stick into the clear water to get maximum drive out of that boat. A newcomer in the standard class, that's Des Borgito with the co-driver Rion Kaiser in the Century Electrical boat. You see one of those boats run in both the Blueprint and Modifier class as well. Falls under the banners of Barry Marks. As Vucani Petroleum goes through to chase the PH Plant Hire boat of Jacques Martier and Carla Watkins. Wild Africa Cream at the moment holding on to second place behind Carl Colby and Ross Templeman. The Conticrete boat out in the front of the pack and holding on to first place, and the win would eventually go to Colby, a well-deserved win. He showed he had the pace from the word go. Entering into the final heat for the standard class, Conticrete getting the drive off the line over Tertius Botma in Kulani Transport. In third place it was Gordon Butler and Donovan Butler, the Elkazay brothers, riding along and trying to close down the gap. But this time around I think Colby has managed to jump it on them one more time. Don't know what he's got at the bottom of that boat, but whatever he's doing, it's working really, really well for him. So it's Conticrete that leads, then it's Kulani Transport. Elkazay now in third place. We managed to speak to Gordon Butler before the start of the standard class race and asked him exactly what it takes to prepare a boat for a national race and who he has behind him to back him up as far as technical support is concerned.
Of course, yes. I've always had my father down my back, my main sponsor, and also like a technical guy to me. He has a very good ear for the motors. Always helped me to get the exact right setup for all my circuits and my long hauls. I've had Gil Fernandez behind my back for, the best of 9 years, 8 years now, and he's just been tremendous. He's our technician and he does our motors, like I said, to a ticky.
Gil Fernandez is a man that needs no introduction into the technical aspect of inflatable powerboat racing. He's a legend as far as race prepping motors are concerned. Behind Elkazay's Gordon and Donovan Butler. So now you know what makes the man tick as they head into the last couple of meters of the final lap of heat number 3. It's going to be Carl Colby that grabs the win. Gordon Butler will be claiming second place, while Kulani Transport's Tertius Botma taking third. Overall standings then for the Century Electrical Standard class, Carl Colby, Ross Templeman, Conticrete grabbing first place, Forster and Matham, Wild Africa Cream in third, while Jaco Klooster, Zeal and Wilhelm Stein in Aquarius Racing coming through to grab that third place. In the PH Plant Hire Blueprint class, it was sad to see only 4 boats on the water for this round of the Blueprint class. To get off the line for that first heat, and it's Clutie and Collins getting off to a great start on the outside. On board we go with Jean Schutter and Yvette Legrancy, IEC Engineering, holding on to a third place, and just behind Clutie and Collins there, it's Basson and Quill. Spoke to Stein Basson before the race, and they said that he's been doing a lot of work as far as crop choice is concerned on the flat water. You know, they come down from the Western Cape. They don't like racing on the flat water, but they've got to compete on the flat water circuit to gain as many points as they can on the national championship log. Just ahead of Schutter here, it's Rocker Erasmus and Wilhelm Stein, the stainless deck boat, a very famous yellow color of Rocker Erasmus' stainless deck boat, managing to take away third place from Schutter and Legrancy. The refresh duo of Clutie and Collins managing to keep Stein Basson and Jan Creel Bar Industrials just behind them. They will be racing 9 laps though, so the battle at the front will be between Clutie and Basson. As we head now into the W, you can see the line, or the different lines they take. Watch Basson just behind the front boat there. He's going wide. He's opting to take one of his equalizer laps, looks like it. Yes, he is. He's going through an equalizer lap. So Clutie takes the short course while Basson takes the equalizer. Wants to make sure that he does so in clean water. On board with Jean Schutter and Yvette Legrancy. She's so light in the front of that boat. It really works well for Schutter out on the flat water circuits. But as far as the open water and the sea is concerned, it won't work that well for him out there. So Clutie's still leading the way. Team refresh. Clutie and Collins at the front of the pack, and a lot of pressure on him to perform. Keep in mind, he is at the moment the world champion as far as the blueprint class is concerned, and he wants to try and make sure that he shows the rest of the field that he's earned that title. As Jean Schutter and Yvette Lachranzi moving around the course, but it's going to be Basson and Creel that'll be claiming a win in the first heat of the blueprint class. They managed to get equalizer just right, taking the lead over Cloutier and Collins, but there's still 2 more heats of action left. As we move into heat number 2, it's Barty Industrials at the front. Stein, Basson and Jan Creel getting a jump over Team Refreshers, Cloutier and Collins. Basson knows he's got his setup right. He just mustn't make any mistakes. On board with Team Refresh. Watch Lyndon Collins moving to the front of the boat, keeping the nose down. And then a quick jump right to the back to keep the weight distribution on that boat as even as possible. As Stein, Basson and Jan Creel comes through to take yet another lap at the front of the pack. They've got clean water ahead of them. So they know now that the setup they've worked on so hard is working for them. Dylan Cloutier's not going to give up the chase, though. He's going to be pushing all the way to the end. We spoke to him before the race, and he cut his teeth on racing with some of the biggest names in inflatable powerboat racing.
Down in East London is I'd like to say, the heart of the racing itself. And when I started riding in the blueprint class with the likes of Rowan Hawks, Mark Hatton, Lionel Ball, yeah, it was a good place to be. Look, I wasn't always up in the front, but experience-wise, I think that I learned a lot from that. Yeah, and then basically built on from there. Luckily, the older guys are in the modified class, so I don't have all that competition coming from that side. But yeah, it was a good place to start and a nice experience for me, I'd say.
Having built up some real great experience throughout the years, Dylan Cloutier chasing hard behind Stein Basson, but the win in the blueprint class heat number 2 would go to Stein Basson, and he was very happy with the win. It's 2 in a row now for the Barty Industrials man.
Ons het baie tyd ingesit vir die races. Ons proppies bietjie deurgewerk en seker gemaak ons boot is so lig as moontlik. Ons het laas het baie gesit op die platwater en dit het ons baie punte gekos. So hierna by Gariep het ons gekom en seker gemaak ons toerusting is alles reg. En op die platwater is belangrik om eers weg te spring. En ons het nou dit reg gekry om die eerste hier te wen. So dis nou in die eerste plek kan wegspring. So in die finaal hoop ons net kyk hoe ons hoop ons om eerste te draai. As jy eers gedraai het en jy ry met jou kop ver, hoop jy te wen.
Can Stein Basson make it a hat-trick of wins for the weekend in the blueprint class? Once again, he gets the jump on Cloutier and Collins, Team Refresh. And as we enter heat now, or the final heat number 3, keep in mind, if you win the previous heat, you get the best starting position on the grid for the start for the next heat. And Stein Basson and Jan Creel capitalizing on that at the moment. Cloutier and Collins not being able to get close to them. In third place, it's Rocker Erasmus and Werner Miller coming through. Werner Miller, of course, the co-driver that used to drive with the Alcazar boat of Gordon Butler. So Miller now moving up to ride with Rocker Erasmus in that stainless deck boat as we catch them coming through the W, Jean Schutter and Yvette Lachranzi in fourth place. As it's Cloutier and Collins going through to take a short lap while Stein Basson and Jan Creel taking that equalizer. That's what put them ahead as far as the positions were concerned in the previous 2 heats, and this time round it's going to be no different. Stein Basson and Jan Creel taking the equalizers at the right time, getting the win over the Team Refresh of Dylan Cloutier and Lyndon Collins from East London, while Rocker Erasmus and Werner Miller, Team Stainless Tech in third place. Jean Schutter and Yvette Lachranzi, IEC Engineering in fourth. The man who couldn't put a foot wrong, Barty Industries, Stein Basson, taking a hat-trick of wins out of the PH Blantyre blueprint class, making it a first place for Barty Industries. Dylan Cloutier and Lyndon Collins, second place for Team Refresh Aquarius, Rocker Erasmus and Werner Miller, and the Stainless Tech Thundercat, while Jean Schutter and Anzel Janssen van Vieren taking fourth place. Time for the big guns to come out and play. It's the Yamaha Modifier class. Last time he raced here, it was a challenge between 2 boats. It was the Aquarius Inflatable of Michael Hutting and Candice Pretorius, and Barry Marks in the Century Electrical Thundercat. This time round, no different. It's Marks chasing down Hutting this time round. And watch that orange boat on the left-hand side of your screen as he cuts a tight line right over here and almost rides over the nose of Andre Erasmus. He's allowed to do that, though, but it's a little bit of dangerous driving there from Barry Marks, but he's trying to keep that second place just behind Michael Hutton, who at the moment is leading the way in the modified class. On board now with Barry Marks and Jolandi van Dijk. Jolandi van Dijk, of course, his old co-driver that he rode with so many years ago. They decided to team up again this year, and two of the top modified teams riding with female co-drivers. It's because they are so light in the front of the boat, it really gives them the edge. Andre Erasmus, AE Electrical in third place at the moment. Watch the center of your screen. It's Beatrix, or Formain and Beatrix de Kok going over the Castings Incorporated Geo, just getting that turn wrong, and they'll be out of heat number 1. A restart there is once again Michael Hutting getting a run on Barry Marks. Marks a little bit closer this time and taking a safer line around the corner. So Marks in second place. Once again, AE Electrical in third. On board with Marks and Van Dijk. Watch Van Dijk move backwards and forwards in the boat. They try to keep the nose down around the corner, and then they've got to move backwards in the boat as quickly as they can to keep the balance of that boat so the driver can get back on the power. At the moment, the top 3 positions in the first heat of the modified class being dominated by the Eastern Cape, the Western Cape, and Gauteng in the form of Michael Hutting from East London, Barry Marks from Gauteng, and Andre Erasmus from the Western Cape, as the challenge continues for those top 3 podium finishers in the modified class. Both Marks and Hutting, both very skilled drivers at the front of the pack, and it's going to be interesting to see how this race develops. Of course, those equalizer laps do make all the difference, and both of them know how important it is to take those equalizer laps at the right time. As we're coming now into lap number 6, Andre Erasmus holding on to third place. They're from the Western Cape. I think he can't wait for the next race of the Nationals. It's going to be at the coast down in Mossel Bay. And that's the kind of racing the guys from the Western Cape like. This is Jaco Stein and Dwayne Scholz going side by side. Scholz, one of the newcomers in the modified class. He rides with Bongani Hendesi. He used to ride with Lionel Ball. So Hendesi on that boat. That's the red boat in front. And I think Dwayne just managing to get ahead of Jaco Stein. Very next lap, a similar position at the front between the two leaders, or the first and second places. Barry Marks comes around the outside. He's got more pace as he comes off that equalizer, goes around the outside of Michael Hutton, and that's all that Barry Marks needed to take the lead in the first heat of the Yamaha modified class. So Barry Marks and Yolandi van Dijk taking over the lead at the front for Michael Hutting and Candice Pretorius. Barry Marks will take the win, taking Century Electrical to yet another win in the circuit race. Michael Hutting settling for second place, while Andre Erasmus claiming third. In heat number 2, once again, a similar situation. Century Electrical and Aquarius fighting it out for top honours. Barry Marks just managing to stay ahead of Michael Hutting. In most places, Hutting keeping Barry Marks to just on a boat length. So it shows that Michael Hutting has managed to get his speed back on the flat water, and he's going to be a man to contend with as we move further on in this SA Championships. The finishing positions wouldn't change, though, as far as heat number 2 would concern. The field would fight it out, but it would make no difference in the final top 3 positions. Barry Marks would take the win for Century Electrical. Michael Hutting in second place, while Andre Erasmus took third. Michael Hutting has improved a lot with his pace on the flat water. We asked him what made the difference.
I don't live next to the dam, so maybe I'm a little bit at disadvantage. We've got the speed. I made a small mistake in the first heat and lost my advantage of starting in first grid position. However, yeah, I'm very happy to be on pace, and you know, I'm the only Toyota amongst all the Yamahas, and I'm trying to hold the flag high here.
And it was a fight that was going to continue right into the final heat of the Yamaha modified class. Barry Marks taking an early lead in the modified class once again. Michael Hutting chasing him down, but I think Marks just has the ability to get off the line a little bit quicker. And Andre Erasmus coming through in third place, on board with Erasmus and Rake Lombard as they cut through the W, trying to keep that boat trimmed out as nicely as possible. I must say the top 2 competitors in the modified class not putting a very big gap on Andre Erasmus. He's holding his own out there and managing to keep them at bay. I'd like to see how this block turns out when we move down to the next round in Mossel Bay at the coast. Keep in mind, Barry Marks not a surf specialist. He knows how to ride surf though, whereas Hutting and Andre Erasmus are both specialists in the surf. So it could be very interesting to see how the rest of this modified championship turns out once we hit the surf. That's Dwayne Schultz and Bongani Hendesi going through, on board with Andre Erasmus as we go through a couple of laps to go. I think one more lap to go before we hit the finishing line. Barry Marks is going to make the most of his wins on the circuit, extending his lead now over Michael Hutting. So Hutting is really going to have to pull it out of the bag when we go down to the surf. Marks leads, taking 3 wins back-to-backs. Barry Marks and Yolandi van Dijk, Century Electrical taking the modified class. Michael Hutting and Candice Pretorius in second, while Andre Erasmus and Rake Lombard in AE Electrical claiming that third place. Jaco Stein and Neil Nell taking fourth. The action on day 2 would consist of an area-bound long haul over a distance of just on 120 kilometers, 12 laps in total. The boats would compete around the circuit. We spoke to Stein, who took all 3 wins in the circuit. Maybe you could make it 4 in a row by winning the long haul.
Ja, om die langafstand races te ry gewoonlik op die tweede dag is nie maklik nie, want dit is heeltemal 'n ander opstelling van die boot, dit is ander skroewe wat ou gebruik. Dit is nie maklik nie. Dit kom ons volgens voor is om geseker te maak dat die kondisies en wat ons wil doen. Maar dit is so as jy 0.5 van 'n kilometer per uur agter die ander is, dan verloor jy met 2 kilometer per uur in 'n dag. So hierso is om 'n boot reg te stel absoluut kritiek.
Boat setup on the day, absolutely critical. So right what Stein says there, and it can cost you dearly on the long haul. The guys are getting ready to hit the water. The boats would start in their different respective classes, modified being the first to depart, then the blueprints and the standards last off the line. Getting off the line here with Stein and Jan Kriel on board camera on the long haul, and it's going to be a long run. Keep in mind, just on 120 kilometers. That equates to 12 laps of this very long course of the Gariep Dam. First to arrive at the far turn buoy would be the Modified, Michael Hutting leading the way with Barry Marks just on his tail on board Stein and Jan Kriel as we catch the standard class boats coming through, and Zeal in the Aquarius taking an early lead in the standard class. He of course comes from the inland and they know how to ride the flat water, so Zeal making the most of the flat conditions as we catch the boats. A beautiful sight heading now past the dam wall, coming to complete yet another lap. Michael Hutting at the front. You can see Barry Marks right behind him. Marks not letting Hutting out of his sight. Further back in the modified class, in 4th place, Dwayne Stolson, Bengali and Desi did well to hang on to a 4th place just ahead of Paul Main and Beatrix de Kock, the newcomers to the modified class, really pulling out all the stops to try and get into that podium finish position. Andre Erasmus coming through with AE Electrical, being chased by a standard class boat. That is Zeal in the Aquarius Inflatable sponsored boat. So he's leading in the standard class at the moment, going around the turn buoy with the 2 Butler brothers and the Alcazar Thundercat. Watch what Donovan Butler does. He reaches to the front of the boat and pulls off a little sticker. The drivers keep little stickers on the front of the boat. It helps them keep track of how many laps there is to do, and the co-driver pulls one off every single time they come through to complete a lap. Just make sure that you don't get confused with all the action on the water. It's so easy to lose count of those laps. Catching those rooster tails as the boats come by at a distance. Michael Hutton still leading at the front. Barry Marks still just behind him. And looks like Mark Orange on the left-hand side coming through and taking part in the race. Mark's coming through to take on some fuel. So Barry Marks and Yolandi van Dijk is going to be a quick stop for them. They want to take on some fuel, and it's a quick change of that bladder. Carries around 20 litres in there, so Mark's getting it going and making sure that he's got enough fuel. He doesn't want to stop again. Maybe one stop will be more than sufficient to catch Stein and Nil coming through to complete another lap. This is Dwayne Skolson, Bongari and Desi taking the bladder, and now to reconnect all the fuel lines as they head off the line. They just want to make sure they've got a bladder on board. One more lap to go, he says to his brother. That's Gordon Butler and Donovan Butler. 8th place overall on the water in the long haul at the moment for PH Blantyre, Jacques Mathieu and Carlo Watkins. They had a very bad start to the circuit after they rolled on the first lap, and that just spoiled their weekend. Dave Jansen van Rensburg and Romery Pina were having a lot of fun in the club class, but Michael Hutting and Candice Pretorius would take the win on the day, and a good win it would be as well.
Yes, one of probably the most specialized flatwater Gariep racer here at Paul Lowe. Gave me a little bit of advice, and also gave me a prop propeller to try in case it does lie down. And what I did this morning, I set up in case it stays rough, and then I tried his prop for flat water, and I made the right decision, obviously, just before the race.
The standard class win will go to Zeal, while in the blueprints it would be Stein and Jan Kriel that would dominate, taking home maximum points with 4 wins in total for the weekend. So then, modified class, Mike Hutting and Candice Pretorius taking the win for Aquarius Racing. Blueprint class will belong to Stein and Jan Kriel, Barty Industrials, and Zeal grabbing the standard class for Aquarius Racing. They say if you put a bunch of racers together on anything that moves, there will always be competition. The guys proved us right all weekend as they competed in some trapkar wedrenne at the dam. A lot of fun being had by all of the teams. Candice Pretorius in the blue coming through, shows she's got the pace with the legs, not just as a co-driver. And Barry Marks couldn't keep it going. So clearly trapkarwedrennen, or as they call it, go-kart racing, not his thing. That concludes our action from Gariep Dam. We'll catch you again for our next round of action as we move down to Mossel Bay. Till then, stay safe on the water. All the action from the National Inflatable Powerboat Series is proudly brought to you by Red Square Reload. Get reloaded. Get Red Square.